Good morning, everybody. Mike Wright, Edge Home Finance. Happy Wednesday, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be back interviewing as the interviewer, and I'm extremely excited to have a great friend of mine, David Hart from Insurance Resource Group. David, thank you very much for being on as our Realtor Partner of the Week this week.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm very excited to finally be a part of this and to kind of see what this is all about.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, David is a great friend. He's also part of my Core Connections B&I group, and so we handle a lot of business back and forth, and it's a great partnership. But before we dive into this thing, the month of May, I tried something new, and I had 4 guest hosts to do these interviews, where they would interview Realtor partners within their team. I want to thank all of them, Taylor Kilty, TK, Brady Holland, Nick Dreyer, and Ryan O'Neill. You guys, you helped me tremendously. But what the coolest thing was is I got to learn so much about how you interview people, what it sounds like to be on the flip side. So thank you very much for you all. I appreciate it tremendously. Awesome. Now it's your time,
now
brother.
I'm up, huh?
Now
right,
you get drilled. Here we go, buddy. Tell us about your family, man.
Well, let's see here. I've got a growing family, but we're working on that. I moved here about 2014, right out of college, and my wife in 2015, and we lived in the cities and just kind of, did the whole mid-20s life, right? And
so moved from, you're, I hate saying a cheesehead because I love y'all. But I mean, he's a guy, him and another buddy in our group are just,
Yeah, well, someone's got to be the one to be a pest. That's all that is.
It's tremendous because it's a lot of ribbon back and forth.
But we have fun with it.
Where did you go to school?
So I went to UW Eau Claire over in Wisconsin.
Sure.
So, and then I got a job opportunity over in the cities, and that's kind of what brought me here. And I mean, as much as I love Wisconsin and my Packers, I got to say Minnesota has something figured out here. Keeps me around. So minus the Vikings, but everything else keeps me going, right?
We got admin person upstairs that's an avid Packers fan as well.
Why am I not interviewing with her?
I'll give you the intro.
Okay, there it is.
2 like minds. So obviously you went to college. You weren't thinking I'm going to become an insurance agent or...
No, when I graduated college, I went to school for business and sales, so I knew I wanted to do something with people. I really enjoy talking with people and helping people, and I actually started with a company called Tom James. They're a high-end custom clothing company, so I went door-to-door selling those, and I had a really nice clientele base, built a good book, and COVID hit, and I went, well, this is not fun.
Tom James,
yeah.
Sure.
So people just, the workforce just kind of got a little more casual, and I realized for my family, I want a little bit more call it maybe flexibility and being able to just be with my clients, but also spend time with my family, not just doing the $0 every day, just trying to build. So one of my clients introduced me to the individual who owns Insurance Resource Group, and I just had a conversation with them, and I went, hey, I have my clientele already here. I can take them with me here and
moving them over.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't bat 1,000 on them, but I'd take anything I could and just kind of hit the ground running again.
Well, it's a product that everyone needs.
Absolutely.
Right? Life insurance, auto insurance, home insurance.
It's inevitable.
Obviously, we've got 950 some agents here, and I bank on David a lot. You know what I mean? Because he's a broker. Right? So even though nobody likes insurance, which is why we're going to dive into this thing, why are premiums higher, et cetera, it's a needed product. And you might as well have a guy that answers the phone all the time. He will respond weekends, evenings, and give your clients the service they need. So tell me the difference between, Tom James, where you're garbing everybody up under their attire and making them look good. But that was I've dealt with people, right? Mm-hmm. That made you dial.
I think that I took a lot of what I learned from that career and took it over with me, because you're absolutely right. I mean, you want to talk about cold sales, it's door to door. That is the definition of it. Yeah. It was nonstop. You didn't know who I was. I didn't know who you were. There was no close connection at all. And it was just picking up the phone and dialing. And, when you're used to doing 100 dials a day and you got to make 50, it doesn't sound so bad anymore.
Right.
So I was able to do that and took a lot of what I learned. And I mean, for me, it really wasn't so much the product. Yes, the product is the product, but it's just my ability to still help people and be involved. And now, instead of dressing you up for your biggest day, I get to be a part of your biggest purchase you'll ever make in your life.
Yeah, so COVID kicked your ass in that deal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think any person who sells clothes or retail could say it kicked their ass. Yes.
That's right.
So, and then, of course, that happens. And what happens in, 2022, we have the 5th highest claim year on record for insurance. And now insurance premium is spiked through the roof. And now I'm still having the same battle, just a different way.
Let's dive into that ugliness, man. So we all deal with this stuff, and me being on the mortgage end, it's constant, right? Where people are tight qualifying, 50% ratios. Now we have to deal with higher insurance premiums. What has, Minnesota hasn't been a byproduct of all the claims? Has it been more down south?
That's a good question, Mike. I would say, I would say it's probably been almost across the board in every state you've seen it.
Yeah.
Like as I mentioned, 2022 is the 5th highest claim year on record, or close to it. If it wasn't, pretty sure it was though. And I mean, as a result, these insurance companies, their pool of their financial security is just, it diminished, whatever that word is. And as a result, they went, hey, we got to increase our premiums here. So even if you had nothing wrong, you have a clean record and nothing to show for it, we're expecting 25% rate increase. And I mean, that was tough for a lot of individuals too.
Has that been a hard sell to clients? Or is it like interest rates for us?
I'd probably say closer to that, right? I think it was a tough sell, yes, but I think it was more just educating them on why and the reasons, and then just saying, hey, yes, here's why. However, instead of completely focusing on that price, what we're getting and cutting coverages, let's look at alternatives. Let's look at ways that we can maybe minimize that premium, but still make sure you're properly insured.
So tell me about that, because everyone just kind of says, I need homeowners insurance.
Yeah,
I need auto insurance. And it makes such a blanket statement of that, but there is so many sump pump additions, flood, hail, I'm part-time down in Florida, man. The flood insurance and all that other stuff is crazy.
I cannot imagine doing that.
So how do you educate your clients, realtors' clients, when they call you?
I think it's really more setting the expectation on the front end, really letting them know, hey, we shopped you through how many carriers. I feel pretty confident what I found for you is going to be the best out there. So kind of setting that expectation that, hey, this is kind of what the new standard is. So as a new standard, I still want to make sure you're properly insured and just get the understanding that you're not going to be seeing a $1,500 a year mortgage, or insurance premium anymore. That just doesn't exist. And if it does, I'd like to see what coverages you have, right? I mean, let's dive into why it's that price.
Yeah.
So getting that understanding first, and then, looking at the alternatives of, hey, instead of the standard deductible of $1,000, let's increase that a little bit. What might that look like? Right. Would you rather pay $2,500 for a water claim that's going to cost you $20,000, or would you not have that coverage at all and now you're at $20,000, right?
So deductibles?
Deductibles a big one. That's a nice way we can do it. Also, looking at certain coverages maybe you don't necessarily need in the exact situation, right? Life's changed all the time. People are constantly evolving, and whether it's kids or whether it's an upgraded to their home, maybe one coverage you might not need right now, so we can revisit that in a year or two, but this one I would strongly encourage you still have right now, right? So we look at more than just the overall, like how's the condition of the home? How's the lifestyle going? How do you
determine what riders, right? Like I said, whether they need sump pump coverage, whether they need,
additional roof.
Yeah.
So it really, a lot of it comes down to, so when we're looking at the premium of a home, we're looking at the age of the home. What is the age of the roof? Those are like the two big ones we look at. Square footage, sure, but then we also look at the location of it. Where does it sit? If you're living in downtown Minneapolis or South Minneapolis, you can fully expect a higher premium than you're going to be, say, out in Chanhassen or even out in Carver, right? It all plays a role in that. So we look at all of that, and these older homes are just becoming very difficult to insure because of the high risk of the problems with them. So when we look at this, we go, okay, well, this company might not make sense because of the age of your home. They're not going to insure X number of things. So let's find a carrier who's willing to insure to the max coverage, and we'll look at that. Or if you have a brand new roof on it, well, let's still fully insure that roof, but maybe we don't need to add an additional matching coverage roof on it, right? So we kind of dive in and look at the whole picture of it to see what makes sense and what necessarily doesn't make sense at that time.
How do you with roofs? Because I know these are things that realtors bring up all the time, right? How old's a roof? Well, I'm not sure. Maybe 10 years, maybe 5. Nobody really knows unless you're going back to the sellers and they can play the game. How do you check that.
Well, even it's funny sometimes, even with realtors, when you go and ask them, because obviously that's one of my first questions I ask when I'm gathering the information. You know,
Yeah.
what's the age of your roof? And sometimes they don't even know, and they'll go talk to a seller. And sometimes there's situations where the previous owner that they're buying it from didn't replace the roof, so
Right,
they have no
right.
idea. And when it comes down to that, you know, sometimes the insurance carriers will bring out an inspector to look at it themselves, but otherwise, you know, you go off your best educated guess. But you know, I'm not going to look at a house that was built in say 2000, but the roof clearly looks like it's from 2000, and put,
Yeah, right.
the roof is 2020. Let's rock and roll. I mean, then you're just not going to get covered. So I think really finding the truth behind it all. But you know, at the same time, what we have seen a lot lately is the sellers are at least able to tell us it's over under about 8 years. So that is extremely helpful, just because, you know, 9 years, 10 years, 11 years, now you're getting close to, I might not be insurable by certain carriers.
Right.
So we're just always going to play it on the safe side. Is just go older.
One of the cool things, though, and we've seen State Farm up the yin-yang all,
Yeah.
you know, all during the NBA, all, you know, every sport, they're there, right?
Correct.
American Family. What differentiates you as a broker from them?
So State Farm and American Family, same with, you know, USAA, those are some of the top carriers out there as well. They're what's called the captive agency, which means you can only get a State Farm or USA quote from that specific carrier or agent, excuse me. And they, on the flip side, they can't shop you out through other carriers.
Right.
So one way I kind of look at it is, as a broker, you get the ability to actually work for the client versus working for the agency. Having that ability really to kind of go, hey, if this carrier is going to piss us off a little bit, well, then I'm just going to go to this carrier. I don't really care.
Right.
They're just as competitive. They're just as you know, when you're a top 10 insurance company, there's not a whole lot of difference between number 10 and number 1.
Right,
I mean,
right,
they're still out there. They're still getting the right care, what you need. So, I mean, if one's going to be $1,000 more for you, that doesn't make sense. Let's just
Yeah.
go to the other one. So having that ability and flexibility really, you know, I think is in favor for the clients especially.
Well, and coming from a broker like we are as well, with over 100 different options, you've got 80 some
85,
different, huh?
About 85, I'm pretty sure is where we're at right
Yeah,
now. So
different insurance companies that allow David, depending on the people's situation. Some people have had a lot of claims,
Yeah.
right? And whether it's auto. So tell us a little bit about bundling, right? You always hear this bundling will save you money.
correct. And I would say 90% of the time that is accurate. There are situations where it just doesn't, you know,
Yeah.
depending on your track record. Claims, as you had mentioned, that's a big one. You know, people that are not great drivers, I'll call it, or they have made poor choices behind the wheel, we'll call that one.
Like everyone down in Florida, I'm just saying,
Probably,
you know,
yes.
like freaking nuts.
You know, I don't think
down there.
Arizona is too far off from Florida in
Aye.
that sense. Sometimes you're like, what in the heck? Okay, anyway, we'll take care of that. But the bundling idea is these life insurance companies, and even right now, a lot of these big carriers, Minnesota is a state that definitely holds true to this, is they won't even take you on unless you take the home and auto with them, just to help watch their...
Take what?
They will not even take your home insurance unless you bundle their auto with them.
Right.
So that is a newer thing in the last couple of years. I mean, geez, in 21, 22, you could throw anything out there and everybody would want to take it.
Right.
But nowadays they won't take it because of the risk that they might look at, or they're not going to insure a brand new home without the auto. So in that sense, the bundling does make sense. But if you're the average individual, I'll call it, who has a fairly clean record, no claims on their home, or just a few, you know, that difference can be up to 20, maybe even 30%. So if you're, especially in your situation as a lender, I mean, you and I have had the conversation on the phone where you go, hey, David, you know, I need to get my home insurance under X for the debt to income. Okay, well, that makes sense there. So sometimes it might go, well, to be properly insured, they are going to require your auto. So let's see what your auto is looking like.
Yeah.
I can find something to reach that, but the question then comes to, yes, the price is there, but do I feel comfortable putting my own family in that coverage or that policy? I don't know. So that's really where the bundling, in my opinion, comes into play that can really help. And even if you're just breaking even on the auto, but it's saving you $400 or $500 on the home, you're still winning.
Yeah.
So I really look at all of that.
One of the things that I've got a tremendous amount of respect for David with is that, of course, I shop my insurance, right? Mm-hmm. And what
right.
David was, and first of all, if you haven't shopped your insurance, call
Give
this
it a
cat,
shot.
because I mean, he'll be so honest with you. He ultimately said, here's the deal, Mike, your house coverage is amazing. You're fine. Let's look at the autos, right? And just appreciating that, because what it proved is what we all, as realtors and mortgage people and insurance people as well, it's about the client. It ain't about the paycheck.
Yes.
Right? Because that's where the referrals are going to be coming into play. And that's why I appreciate everything you do with
I
that.
appreciate it, Mike. Yeah, I remember when we looked at yours, it was, I mean, I tried hard.
Yeah.
Just because, of course, I wanted to earn your business and everything. But at the end of the day, I would not feel comfortable trying to convince you and sell you something that you have no idea maybe what you're getting, or you feel comfortable, but you're trusting what I'm saying.
Right.
And all of a sudden now you're less coverage. I couldn't do it. So, but we did the same thing for you. I put you on my list to check it again next year, because what's not to say something doesn't change in a year. And that's, in my opinion, I think a huge advantage as well as of being a broker or working with a broker is most of these brokers, if they are, in my opinion, a competent broker, they're going to reshop your insurance for you,
all
right?
the time.
They should. And if they don't, I think you need to find a new broker. But we automatically do that. So, I think right now I forget Travelers or whoever you have might be the best, but what's not to say in 2 years Nationwide doesn't come out just ripping. So you have that option.
I think it's getting that statement where you first throw up in your mouth and you're going, what the frick is this?
I've heard that
that's
one
where
a
the
ton.
immediate next dials to David on the speed dial.
I've had many panic phone calls in the last 12 months, to say the least.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
How did you end up because he's in Minnesota.
Correct.
And Arizona.
I'm licensed in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Arizona, and ultimately Arizona Insurance Resource Group really was already down there, or we wanted to grow that market just because, if as crazy as it sounds, if you look from the insurance perspective between the two states, there's not a whole lot of difference between them.
Right.
You're not looking at a ton of tornadoes. You don't have to worry about those. Hurricanes, where Florida is just the queen of all that. So if you look at that, there is a lot of similarities there. So when I was looking at getting licensed and where I wanted to be licensed, and on top of that, I mean, snowbird is a real thing.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you went Florida route, but a lot of people in Minnesota will go the Arizona route. So it was just easy to throw that in there as well. And the nice thing was that, over time, just those clients that I had, and then when they would go to Arizona over the winter time, then I got the referrals from their friends down there, and it just kind of made sense to keep it. And that's ultimately why Arizona just kind of became the third place for it.
we got to lay this on the line. Sorry for all you Wisconsin people.
Oh boy, here we go,
But
Mike.
is the DWI claims higher in Wisconsin versus most other states? I mean, I'm just saying.
It's
I don't
gotta
really,
be close. I should really check on that, and I'll get back to you. But I think the funny thing might be is Minnesota. I think the ones in Minnesota who have it are the ones originally from Wisconsin who just moved here.
There you go.
So yeah, maybe that's the other thing. I think it's a little skewed no matter how you look at it.
We'll leave that alone at that. But so tell us about, because a lot of these agents out here, including myself, we dial. How do you do that? I mean, are you just picking up, the Kohl's directory and just freaking dialing, or what do you do?
Do I still do that? Yes. I mean, I think any salesperson would be lying to you if they say they're still not cold calling. I still think that's an important part. But, as your business gets more established, right, you focus more on, all right, if I can make 20 calls to get that one person, or I can go network and get my referrals, and now I have 5 calls to get the same result, it makes a little more sense to do that. But Insurance Resource Group, the owner, Joe, he did a really good job too. He has a lot of partnerships with realtors and lenders as well. So we're just getting, as especially these first-time home buyers are getting their first home, they get an email right from us saying, hey, let's go. So it's really, I think, is important to just get it out on the front end, and that's where IRG has done a great job with that. So yes, do I still cold call? Yes, but a lot of it
you don't need to.
Yeah, I mean, leads are coming in hot.
That's where these partnerships, because obviously I was on your Facebook group, and just you and I going through these, talking ahead of time.
Yep.
You got a lot of great realtor partners.
We're very fortunate. It's really nice to work with them, and they do an outstanding job. And I think it's the trust factors there too, right?
Yeah,
Because if you're a good lender, or if you're a well-established realtor, and you also have the client's needs first, or that mindset, it's a very easy connection to just, right? If they trust you already, well, then they're going to trust who you send over. And I take great pride to make sure, okay, well, it's not just me that's on the line here. It's also whoever is sending me that name. And I got to make sure that I give the best response possible, so they don't get a phone call in 2 years saying, hey, the house you just sold me is on fire, and I find out I'm not covered. What the hell did you give me?
Correct.
So I think there's a lot that goes into it. I'm more than just, I don't care about the renewal this year. I want you for 5-10 years. I want to make sure you're
forever.
taken care of. Yeah.
That's where your referrals are
Loyalties.
coming from. And I think that I just got 2 offers accepted this weekend, and boom, they head right over to
I
David.
appreciate those.
And here's the deal. Everyone knows an insurance person, no doubt. But to have them be able to shop that is so critical, especially with a broker. We run into the same thing with my world, is that there's always somebody that knows somebody.
Absolutely.
And all I'm asking for is a shot, which is all you're asking for.
Correct.
And the people walk away, because I think that's the explanation of the coverage that gets intimidating, man.
For
I mean,
sure.
do you need an umbrella? These young people buy in. We talk about this all the time as a realtor, as myself, as David. People buy a $300,000 home, right? Mm-hmm. Young, invincible. The cost to get a term policy 20, 30 years for $300,000 is like peanuts. Therefore, you're going to leave your legacy properly done.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, that's a great way to look at it.
And I think that that's where you've come into play with a lot of my people, is that it's more than just homeowners insurance. It's how are you going to set them up properly
down the road
in the right hands.
And that's really what we care about too, right? I mean, as I kind of mentioned just previously, but I want to make sure after we get off this phone today, if something comes up in 5 years from now, we're not having a conversation going, I'm so sorry we declined all this, or we didn't look at this back then, and now as a result, 5 years later, you're not covered or you're not getting this benefit back. And I mean, that conversation is far tougher to have than on the front end to just make sure that you understand what you're getting. And in 5 years, then I can call you and go, yeah, no, you're good, you're covered. We got you taken care of. Phone calls coming, and then just follow the steps and you're done.
Do you, how often you getting some pump calls?
That is a weekly call.
That's a weekly call?
That is a weekly call. It's insane. And that is, it's interesting. A lot of people, and this is probably good for everybody out there in realtors, people ought to always assume that your basement's covered by insurance, and in fact, it's not, right? I mean, insurance or basements are very high risk to insurance companies, right? It's below the ground, so it's just a disaster there. So without the water coverage, because the sump pump is really the only basement coverage water you get.
Right.
So if it's, older homes usually run into more than anything else if they're sweeping through the walls and stuff, but having those coverages on there, I feel is very important. And that sub pump, man, I mean, that is 80% of basement problems.
It's critical.
And the phone calls that I get. Well, I got another member in our core connections. He had sent me an individual. He was working on having to redo their whole basement, and she called me, and I won't name the carrier she was with, but she thought she was fully insured, and she had zero coverage for her sub pump, and it was $15,000 later, and she was livid. So it's tough, but and I think the other challenging thing is, and this again to me comes back to just educating the clients, where you don't want to get the insurance companies involved unless we know for sure what we're doing, right? I mean, let's get a third party out there to assess it, to make sure that they go, whether it's a roofer, whether it's a plumber, whoever it is, a situation to go, yeah, this is covered by insurance. Because otherwise you file the claim, and if they don't cover it, now you have a $0 claim on your record. And that's only going to increase your premiums, and it's stuck there for 5 years. And that just doesn't make sense.
David helped me tremendously. We had in my former home a roof, some hail damage, right? Everyone in the neighborhood had hail replacement, and I'm going, God, do I file a claim or not? He came out, and obviously with a person within his group, they looked at it and said, you're going to have $1,000,
correct,
right? Maybe don't file a claim.
Just
because of that deal, right? And I think it's important to have that friendship and partnership, because if you file a claim, whether it's even the deductible amount, it's still a claim.
Yep. And that's what people don't understand, that, the claim is, whether it's a $20,000 claim, $10,000 or $500, the insurance carriers, when they're running your reports and everything with underwriting, they're just looking at the claim number. They don't care the dollar amount. They just look how many claims you have.
Right.
So that's where it really kind of makes sense, I think, as a broker, and we have a lot of relationships, whether it's a roofer or a plumber, that just say, hey, I'll call him and I'll have him go out there. I'll meet you out there and let's just look at it. All right. And for you, it wasn't in bad shape. I mean, you would have been really pissed if you would have filed.
Of course.
Because that premium renewal the next year, you've been like, this sucks. Well, that's why.
Well, of course it does, because the $1,000 ain't going to do you diddly.
No.
And it's not going to cover what you need to get covered, and therefore there's another claim. So I appreciate your advice with that. Tell us a little bit about who is a good referral. I mean, obviously we're dealing with realtors, but who else is the business?
I mean, obviously, I would say real estate agents is for sure number one.
Yep.
Lenders is definitely number two. I do enjoy working with financial advisors as well, and accountants and CPAs, just because I think that's also a hidden area where people don't realize where you can save money.
Yeah.
Financial advisors, that's a unique one that I work with a couple of them as well, because they just kind of go, well, we can save the money here, and we can use that money to invest, and then they break it down over 30 years. That's not my expertise. I won't speak on that. I help out where I can. But I'd say those are big ones too. But I mean, the realtor is obviously my number one. As far as a client individual, I mean, if they have a very loyal broker. I mean, I will gladly help them out, or a longtime friend, but I will be the first to tell them too, like, hey, loyalty is everything.
Well, they're
Right.
the point of contact.
Yeah.
They're the trusted
I'll gladly
advisor.
help you out if you want, and if you're not happy, 100%. But I don't want to step on any toes, you know.
Yeah.
And that's okay with me. But even with you, it's like you have great insurance. I'm not going to try to steal that from you. I mean,
Right.
it makes sense to just stay there, and if it makes sense down the road, great. But you know, those. I think just having those conversations just to kind of get to know the client, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, those referrals, the real estate market is really where I'd say is my go-to.
So we're going to be sharing David's information. Here's what I tell you guys is that no matter who your lender is, have them call David as an alternative. That's all we're kind of asking, and getting David some exposure at the Insurance Resource Group, because as a broker, he'll win. You know what I mean? And it's not going to win every time, but he'll win. And if he can look good and save your clients money, you guys look good.
Absolutely.
Your lender looks good. Many know that there's probably no better loan officer than me, but I mean, I'm just saying I may be biased, But anyways,
it.
we appreciate you coming on as our Realtor Partner of the Week, my friend.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I really appreciate it.
It's always good having buddies,
Yeah,
and
it's a
you're
great
an
time.
intricate part of our Core Connections group, and we appreciate your expertise. And if you have any questions, you guys, Jake, who obviously you all know, will be posting David's email, contact information, phone number. Thank you all for being here. It's nice to be back in this seat doing some interviewing. Catch us on YouTube, Realtor of the Week. Catch us on Instagram, Realtor of the Week. And, of course, our Facebook group. Without you guys, we ain't much. So thank you very much, and have an amazing week.